Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today is from someone who tells us they received a check from a friend that came at the right time and was very helpful to them. And they had been praying for help about something, so this was seen as a miracle for them. And then they noticed that the bank number, the ID number or the routing number, I don't know which, had 5 number 5s, one right after the other in the middle of the number. So let's say the number was XX, and then there were 5 5s, and then there were, 3 more X's after that. But, 3 5s is a holy number. It means the grace, the presence of God, the grace of God. Like in the Bible where the angel says, Hail Mary, full of grace, meaning Hail Mary, full of the presence of God. So that's what 3 5s mean. So to see 5 number 5s on this check was gigantic for this person to see it as a coincidence miracle. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who tells us they were awakened in the morning when it was time to get up, and they started getting a thought that they should be talking to God more often, asking advice, asking questions, asking for guidance during the day. And then for the rest of the day, they were so amazed because several things during their day brought up the same thing. They heard it on the radio, for one thing. They said they saw a TV show at night that also stressed the same thing. And there was a book they were reading that also commented on the same thing. And even a friend of theirs brought up the same notion. So there's a person who got 4 sources telling them something that they woke up with on their mind. They woke up with their thought they need to, consult God more often. And apparently, they read a book that's a spiritual book, and they watch TV shows that are spirituals, etc. But that was very interesting because they got 4 confirmations during the day that their inspiration in the morning was spot on. And, things like this have happened to me in my life and friends of mine as well. I do meet with some people monthly, a group, actually 2 groups, 2 different groups of men, different church functions, and we share miracles in our lives. And I know other people also get this kind of thing, these coincidences, these amazing coincidences that happen to us in life that help us to see God working in the minutiae of our life. And that's what this show is all about. I try to share with everybody, that we can spot God in the very tiny, small, apparently insignificant things in our life, because that shows how deeply God is involved with us. He doesn't just deal with the huge things in our life, but he actually deals with all the tiny, small things in our life as well. And he's right there loving us in those tiny moments as well. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who had important meetings with their doctor and with their lawyer on a given day, and they were concerned about both of them, both meetings, so they prayed for God to help them and work with them in whatever the problem issues were. And they tell us that everything went well, and what happened during this day was pretty amazing, because on the way toward the doctor and lawyer's offices, which is were in the same direction from their home, on the way there, they saw a car coming toward them at an intersection, and the car in the intersection coming toward them had 4 number 7s on it, 7777. And as you know from prior shows, 3 7s is God's number. So they noticed 4 7s, which, they were hoping for God's help on the way to the meetings. So that was a very good indicator that God was, with them or visiting them on this trip. But what was really amazing was on the way back home, at the exact same spot, same place, they said give or take 5 or 10 feet, but at the same spot on the way home, they saw the same identical car on the way home that they saw on the way to the meetings, and the same car obviously had 4 7s on it. So what a remarkable story this is. Seeing 3 7s when you're going to a meeting at an intersection is a definite clue. I get them very often in the last 50 years, and so do a lot of my friends as well. So I know that that's one of God's ways of showing us by seeing numbers that mean certain things. So seeing 3 7s at an intersection on the way to an important trip is a good sign that God is going to be helping you. But to see 4 7s on the way to the meeting and on the way back at the exact same spot, give or take 5 or 10 feet on the same highway, is a brilliant coincidence miracle. I'm so happy to share that with everyone. I'm so happy to know that it happened to somebody on the planet Earth. Our next coincidence miracle has to do with something that happened to me one day. I was meeting with someone about a project I've been working on, and it was our first meeting. And when we met, we were talking about, things we are involved in, and I told him about my 2 books and the radio shows and lectures and things, and gave him my website. And, we talked about coincidence miracles, of course, because that's what all my books and radio shows all about, coincidence miracles. And he was delighted to hear that, and he said, gee, I'm so delighted to tell you that I was having some stresses and anxieties and problems, and I was praying on the way here this morning to our meeting, and I was asking God to inspire me and help me. So he said, I'm very much in tune with what your books are about. And he said, I don't know if he's very interested in music. He plays the organ and he plays the piano, and he follows the classics, like Beethoven and Bach. And he was asking God to be helpful today in his projects and the things he's been working on. He needed some help, and he wanted God to help him. So he was sharing with me, to kind of support my books and my radio show. He was trying to tell me that he's really into what I'm all about. And he said an amazing thing happened to him, and I guess you would call it a coincidence miracle, because right after I prayed for his help, I got inspired to turn the radio on, and I have a favorite radio station I listen to. And he said one of Beethoven's or Bach's compositions, I forgot which one he told me now. I don't know if he said Beethoven or Bach, but he said one of their famous compositions that you very, very rarely ever hear on the radio. He said he's been listening to this special radio station that covers the classics, and you very rarely hear this. And he said he loves it so much, and he very rarely hears it. And he turned his radio on after praying to God, and that specific composition just started to play as he turned his radio on. It was like a once-in-a-lifetime event for him. So I'm sharing with you that, someone I met, we talked about, what I'm doing in my life, and that interests them because they have coincidence miracles in their life, and they were happy to share this story with me. So I'm happy to be able to share a real-life story that happened from somebody I met on a particular day. Our next coincidence miracle is something that happened to me again. As I indicated in the past, I meet with two different groups of men in the Connecticut area. We are groups of men from churches that we attend, and I belong to two different groups from different churches, etc. And we talk about miracles in our lives and different things that we share in common, like Bible reading or teaching Sunday school, etc. And it gets pretty philosophical or theological. We talk a lot about God and some of our readings from the Bible during the month that we found interesting, etc. Well, one particular month was pretty amazing. We were talking about several things, and we got to the point where we noticed in the book of Daniel, in chapter 3 in the book of Daniel, there's a place where Daniel and his two friends are in a fiery furnace. The king has decided that because they're breaking the rules in the kingdom, he's been convinced by his advisors that they should die, so he has them thrown into a fiery furnace. Well, when they're in the fiery furnace, they begin praising God, and they're not affected at all by the flames at all. And they go on and on praising God, and they start saying things like sun and moon, praise God, trees, praise God, trees and rocks, trees and mountains. So basically, in Daniel chapter 3, they wind up asking everything in nature. They go on and on, a long, long list. Everything in nature, trees, rocks, water, snow, birds, animals, everything. They keep saying on and on, praise God, honor God, etc. So we started to notice that it sounded as if Daniel and his friends were saying that nature has the ability, they have the talent, the ability, the wisdom, the capability to praise God, because we're telling them to praise God and honor God. So it's really, really very weird and very philosophical. We didn't think we'd come up with an answer at all, but the notion came up. Do we really expect trees and rocks to praise and honor God? Do they have that capability? Well, the next thing we noticed was that in the New Testament, Jesus, in Mark chapter 11, he curses a fig tree. He walks over to a fig tree. He was hungry. Jesus, it was out of season, but Jesus curses the fig tree because it did not have figs, and it was out of season, but he wanted figs. So that indicated that Jesus thought that the fig tree had the ability to produce figs even out of season. And then one of the men who came to this meeting, was the first time for him to ever come to the meeting. We just met him this night. He says, hey guys, I've got a coincidence miracle to share with you. Just before Christmas, someone gave us a gift of a fig tree. They told us to keep it in the garage over the holiday, cover it with a plastic sheet, and it would be okay. We came back after Christmas, and the tree was blooming, and it was out of season, but it was blossoming and blooming, and you guys are talking about a fig tree tonight. That's our fig tree coincidence miracle. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.